Welcome, guys, to another episode of the Range Talk podcast. I, for sure this time, am definitely Isaias.
And I am Cisco, I guess.
He guesses, all right? That's just a placeholder name. But you guys saw the title. To another episode, we are going to be talking about the history of Airsoft and the technological advancements that Airsoft has made.
Yeah, I think we are going to be talking more about the evolution of technology in Airsoft. We are going to go briefly about how Airsoft began way before I was born.
Way before the dinosaurs even came out, man.
I don't even have experiences with like the first Airsoft guns ever created. Do you?
I was able to shoot like some old ass like Airsoft guns, but I would highly doubt that these were the exact same ones.
Okay.
That were the ones that were like available like way back in the day as well.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like they were probably just like reproductions of those.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, I get it. So, I mean, I think nowadays, obviously, everybody knows about the AEG, but for a period of time, there was an era before Tokyo Marui actually released the first AEG out there. What up, boy?
What's up?
he's going to film right now. But, yeah, so I remember, like, the first things I saw about Airsoft, quote-unquote, history is this old Tokyo Marui commercial.
It's the Marui Man commercials, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
And
Tokyo Marui, and they would just show up like the AEG, right? Or they would show up like some of the other guns, and it was the same guy over and over again.
Maybe not then. Okay,
interesting.
So this commercial that I saw, it was filming like a skirmish, right? And it was showing the different models of guns that were available. There were the like gas-powered Airsoft guns, and then there were the original ones. Yeah, they used like a bike pump.
It's the same video, yeah. I know the one you're talking about.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's part of that same, like, if you look up, like, Marui Man or Tokyo Marui Man commercial on YouTube, it'll show up. That's the one. I know the one exactly you're talking about.
For sure, yeah. So when I saw it, like, the AGs had already existed for a period of time, and I was like, what are these? Like, what are these relics? No, yeah, because I thought, like, having a pump for, like, just like, it's basically like a pressurized pod or can in your Airsoft gun that you, like you pump to add pressure to it, and then you're only able to shoot like X amount of shots before it ran out. It's kind of like HPA, but not as efficient, like way not as efficient.
It's like the ancient primordial ancestor to like HPA. You know what it kind of reminds me of when we were like saying bump or pipe bumps? It kind of almost, not the exact same, but it almost kind of reminds bike pumps. It almost kind of reminds me of like water guns almost to an extent at that point, right?
Honestly, yeah. So, man, I forget the name of the quote-unquote creator of Airsoft. He had the first patent for Airsoft, which was soft air gun.
Yeah. Because beforehand, there had been like Airsoft, or like, Airsoft. There have been firearm replicas, like for sure. And like toy guns have been made for like, God knows how many long, right? Like, there have been so many different companies that have been like manufacturing their own toy guns, even as far back as like post-World War II, right?
Oh, replicas, yeah.
Yeah, replica guns in general. And like, and I think that's something we need to talk about too. Is like why what was the main reason for like Airsoft guns or like replica toy guns in the first, at least as far as Japan is concerned.
Well, with Japan, so the guy who, from my knowledge, there could be parts that I'm missing.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, from my knowledge, the man who got the first patent or license or whatever for Airsoft was a real firearms like competition shooter and like a gun media guy. So he would like take pictures for magazines and stuff. And he was from Japan, lived in Japan, but would come to the US and other states where they would do competitions and stuff like this and take media for it. And when he was back at home, he wanted to have something that he could train with. And he, I guess, kind of just developed Airsoft in a way. So it shot plastic pellets. You know, in Japan, even the laws now are like foreign to us, obviously. But at the time, it was, I would assume it's much different than the way it is now. Because before, they couldn't have like full metal Airsoft guns. But, you know, there's like companies like Tokyo Marui now releasing full metal AEGs and stuff. So,
but back then in the OG days, like it was very much like you had to have a like legit plastic, like bodied everything. Like, you know, like I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Like again, they just have very, very strict laws. You got to remember, this is post World War II Japan, right? What was Japan doing during World War II? It kind of makes, not to get too political, but at the end of the day, it kind of makes sense, right? When we signed the surrender treaty, right? It was pretty strict laws that were enforced on Japan as a whole.
Yeah, that's valid. but before Tokyo Marui came out and released in AEG, there were different types of airsoft guns, and I believe they were some type of pressure, either it be the pump or some type of pressurized gas, or spring-powered airsoft guns, if I'm correct. And then Tokyo Marui came out, I believe, sometime in the 80s and changed airsoft.
I think it might have been like late 80s, early 90s, actually.
Yeah.
Like, because I remember the commercial saying, like, I believe if you look on the bottom, it said like either 89 or 91.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. And it changed airsoft forever, because this is why people have the Tokyo Marui standard, because when they introduced or made the gearbox, a lot of companies like followed suit within the coming years, right? So when you see an AEG in airsoft, it's pretty much a descendant of a Tokyo Marui, which is very interesting, because at that time, I'm not sure if gas blowback, before Tokyo Marui released the AEG, I'm not sure if gas blowback was really a thing or not. If you guys know, let me know in the comments, because I'm not too sure.
I know gas-powered guns were a thing. Yes, gas-powered were a thing. So I'm pretty sure that's like, you would consider that to be the like direct descent or direct ancestor to the gas blowback system.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know if gas blowbacks, as we know them today, were widely available as much as they are now, or were even really a thing back in that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Because I didn't really see in that same commercial. Right. I don't remember seeing a gas blowback powered gun in that variety of different like platforms that they were showing off.
Yeah, I do remember the guy who was dressed like a juggernaut, who had like the big the scuba tank on his back that was plugged into the gun, basically like the infancy of HPA. But then like he was limited with like the 30-round magazine or whatever. I just remember like the contrast of how Tokyo Marui marketed the AEG was supposed to be like showing it like it's beyond its time when it was, right? And like with the pump guns, like we said, there was only so much pressure that the gun could hold, and from what I understood, like you can only shoot maybe 100-ish times or so before you needed to pump the tank again. And then the gas-powered guns, it's either you had some type of like extra big rig, or it was attached to, I'm not even sure if I don't think it was propane, but from what I remember seeing, it was just attached to.
Isn't it like duster gas?
I think duster gas. It's definitely not green gas.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so interesting to see. Like,
I think when they like introduced the, and that just goes to show, right? Like, because again, the main objective, I guess, with making those firearms, especially as far as Japan is concerned, right, was again, we can't have real firearms, right, because of obviously the laws that are put in place. But we can definitely have some, like, if you follow the laws, right, if they're given, they can definitely make some pretty good like replica stuff that looks pretty close to it, right?
Yeah.
But the AEG, or the birth of the AEG, kind of like gave way to a more like performance or sporting side.
Yes.
To airsoft as well, because before it was literally just about replicas. It was literally just to try to make it as replica. And I'm not saying the AEG doesn't do that. It does, because again, we talked about this with Bossman off screen before, right? Where it was like, if Tokyo Marui really wanted to, they could totally make like a super fast shooting, like way faster shooting AEG if they really wanted to. But they're trying to get it to as close to a real firearm as much as they can. But the system itself does allow for more opportunity for a like high performance build compared to something that's just it's just going to replicate like the real thing.
Well, okay, so I mean, I somewhat agree with you, because people were still competing with airsoft guns when AEGs didn't exist.
True, right? They were competing with it, but again, it just wasn't at that performance level yet.
No, exactly. I think at that time it may have been more of a reenactment, maybe, or just like mock skirmishes versus the competitiveness we see in airsoft, like with SpeedQB and like different like airsoft tournaments. So I do agree with you there, but I'm not sure, like how you talked about, and we've talked about this off screen, like Isaiah just said, but Tokyo Marui can build like really high performing airsoft guns, like from their factory. Like they can.
It's no secret. They've done it.
Yeah. But like, I mean, a testimony to that is their high cycle series, right?
Yeah.
But it's very interesting to see, because they invented the gearbox, right? With the version 1, the FAMAS.
As we know it today, right?
Yeah.
The gearbox, that's why you'll see on, not even just on our website, pretty much every airsoft retailer site, right?
Yeah.
Or every manufacturer site, right? When they give the specifications out to a gun, right? If they'll say what type of gearbox it is, the versions, Tokyo Marui was one that invented the version like numbers for that. They invented that. Or they'll say, or magazines or accessories, right? Or parts, they'll say compatible with X, Y, and Z like brands, anything that follows the TM standard. There you go, the Tokyo Marui standard that's set in place.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually if there was any other company that released or that made a model that Tokyo Marui didn't with like a specialized gearbox. I can't think off the top of my head. Again,
I'm sure it might exist.
Yeah,
but
if you guys know, like if there's something standard, because I do believe Marui didn't, because they make gas powered, blowback, non-blowback. They make AEGs. With obviously the next gen recoil and the standard AEPs, but they make sniper rifles as well. And I don't think they created the
bolt action
6.
Huh?
I don't think they did the L96. If I remember correctly, I think it's Maruzin that made it. I could be wrong. No,
I remember hearing about this recently, and I think you are right that it was an outside company that was the first to make like the spring bolt action like airsoft gun.
Yeah, I'm not sure honestly, because I have to assume that they existed before the AEG existed, right? Because there are shotguns and there are sniper rifles that have existed for a long period of time, and I gotta think that those had existed beforehand. You know what? Maybe we should try to make a history of airsoft book.
An actual book,
yeah,
with him on the cover.
No,
hell yeah.
No, but that would be something interesting.
I'd buy that.
I would too. I think learning about the history of airsoft is really fascinating and can teach us a lot about how far airsoft has come. Because especially with newer players, they take a lot of things for granted. Like even the time from. I would say when I started, and I'm going to assume when you started as well, we have seen a lot of changes technology-wise in airsoft. So
yeah, no, I mean like a lot of the stuff that when we were playing, and I'm sure you can attest this too. Like, you ever go on Reddit and just kind of like when you see people posting questions like, "Oh, what type of airsoft gun should I get?" Right, and you see all these types of recommendations. It's kind of like that, right? Where when we were playing, those recommendations that a lot of keyboard warriors like to type out. Yeah, that was valid back in the day, right? Yep. But this was like years ago. I think coming up on like 10 years ago, maybe even more than 10 years ago, this information was actually relevant, right?
Yep.
As far as recommendations. Not saying all of them, just a lot of them. I do see you out there typing that bullshit. But things have definitely changed. Even with just in the last 5 years alone, I feel like we've seen a massive, massive shift as far as like what companies like to focus on and what are sort of the trends nowadays. But one of the things, let's kind of wind it back, one of the first things that we'd mentioned actually earlier was that, a lot of the TM guns and a lot of the guns we saw back in the day, they weren't sporting metal at all. But, I actually have one right here. This is an OG Tokyo Marui G3, right? This thing is...
Hold it up to the mic. Hold it up to
the mic.
There you go.
No, your mic. My mic. That thing is cranky. It is not very solid whatsoever. Yeah, go for it.
Actually, it's hilariously light.
Yeah,
it is hilarious.
It's supposed to be a G3. It's supposed to be a battle rifle, man. It's supposed to be, got some weight to it. Nah. My little brother can one-hand this. That is really something else.
It's funny. I mean, this is not really a relic, but this is from a period of time in airsoft.
It's definitely from a different time.
No, yeah, definitely.
But like with that, right? Because it is using like so much like plastic, like literally not even polymer. Even polymer is like a luxury.
Is the gearbox metal?
It is.
Yeah,
it should be. I was like, I would hope it is. But even just sporting like a polymer receiver, or let alone a metal body, was like almost completely unheard of. And I feel like that, even to this day, I consider that kind of a luxury that maybe most newer players don't even realize. Yeah, so like the advent of like different materials and just, again, different stuff. But honestly, one of the things that I wanted to highlight again was just the receiver and just the materials used to build the airsoft guns. Because again, like we've talked about this before and we've said it again, every single company that came out afterwards is basically copying TM to an extent and adding their own thing.
Yep. Yeah, like a lot of companies that are still known today, like JG, SEMA, D-Boys, they all use like the plastic receiver with the metal gearbox, which at the time was standard. But
it works.
It absolutely works. But then we started seeing the integration of full metal airsoft guns. I believe it was Classic Army.
I was under the same impression from when the history was taught to me. It was Classic Army was known, at least when I remember. Classic Army was always regarded as the first airsoft company that had full metal body airsoft and full metal body AEGs, and like more specifically, one of the more popular models was, I believe, the Scar, like the Scar L and the Scar. Yeah, if I remember correctly.
The Scar's polymer.
Not like that. A lot of the components they used were metal.
The upper is metal. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's valid.
Yeah.
Oh, when I first heard about Classic Army, it was during my infancy in airsoft, and the one thing that was talked about the most was just the full-length M16, like full metal with the Riz, like completely metal.
Classic.
Absolutely classic. Army.
Yeah. Certified full Classic Army. Okay.
But yeah, and then for a period of time, it was either like regular like ABS plastic or metal guns, and then other companies started to follow suit. I believe D-Boys and all the other companies started releasing their own metal receiver guns. Questionable material for the metals, pot metal.
Yeah, a lot of if you guys didn't know, a lot of the metal that you get in your receiver for airsoft guns, even to this day, there are still a lot of companies, even though it sounds great, having a full metal receiver, the impressions to a newer player is that, oh, it's going to be so much better, it's going to be so much tougher, it can take a beating. No, it's not always the case. In fact, a lot of times most of the time, if anything, I'll tell customers, just because it's metal doesn't mean it's good. Right.
Yeah.
If anything, when Classic Army first came out, I remember talking to Bossman about this, and remember Frank, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Frank would used to tell me that, like, guys like him would take, their Classic Army guns, right, and then remove the gearbox that it came with, and then just swap in their Tokyo Marui gearboxes in there.
Yep, I remember that being told to me as well. Like, you got Classic Army because they had really nice externals, and then you just gut it internally and turn it into whatever you want with like hella aftermarket parts. But then, so we're focusing on like just the external builds kind of right now. We'll go over internals in a little bit. But I think between 2007 and 2009 is when polymer was really introduced into airsoft with the G&G combat machine line.
Yes, the G&G combat machine line. I'm sure all you boomers out there know exactly that polymer that you get, and to this day too, that you can get it on the G&G like lineup of their combat machine line. Like it's really good. It's got nice heft to it, but it's still very lightweight. But you know that if you drop that, it ain't gonna break.
Oh yeah, and that was like one of the main selling points too, the durability of polymer. I remember GI released a video testing the polymer. Like they dragged it like from the back of a car, they threw it over, they did push-ups, like they threw it over a fence and they did like push-ups on the gun and stuff to test it, because before the combat machine line came out, again, there's only metal and plastic. And the plastic, this cheap ABS plastic, like not shooting shots, but if I wanted to, I could break this in half with my hands.
Oh, it's not. Yeah. I got scared.
You
can flex it so hard, like it's scary sometimes. Yeah. That's why I don't normally play with this. This is mainly for like cosplay purposes.
Okay, yeah, good. Because you're gonna be very sad when you break that.
Yes, I am.
It's not
a matter of like if, it's when
it breaks. But yeah, that was like one of the main things, because as like even when we started, I started getting into airsoft seriously 2006. What about you?
Probably like 2010, 2011, around there. I started playing in like 2010, I think, maybe in a little bit of 2009, because I always loved playing with like the little plastic, a cheapo, like Walmart special, like back in 2009. But I think I remember seriously getting into it in like 2010.
Okay.
Because that's when I had met my best friend, shout out Nick if you're listening. I had met him in high school. We were both on the same water polo team, and like he started showing me his collection of all like the Walmart specials, all the springers he had collected at like swap meets and stuff.
That's hilarious.
And that's when we started, and he would show me videos online of like people out in the Midwest doing like zombie airsoft events, and I'm like, yo, I want to do this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And okay, so from when I started airsoft, polymer didn't exist, at least to my knowledge at that time. So you can either get plastic guns or metal guns, and the price difference was was crazy contrasting today's market. So if you wanted, like, let's say a Tokyo Marui full plastic gun, those were like anywhere from like $300 to $400. Like that was the name brand that you sought after. And a lot of people, like, they have the reputation where people still seek it today, right? But if you didn't go with the classic Tokyo Marui, again, plastic body, metal gearbox guns, you would go for guns from either Classic Army or GG that was a little bit more affordable to the airsofters at the time. Because I remember full metal airsoft guns actually being relatively the same to today's market, between like the $300 to $400 price range, depending on the model. And then plastic guns, honestly, would vary. Because at the time, there wasn't really a good understanding of the models that were available, because there are LPEG airsoft guns with plastic gearboxes that only shot like 120 FPS.
And a lot of retailers, unfortunately, at the time, it might have been more my time, but they didn't really specify too much as to like, or differentiate between like the low power AEGs and regular AEGs. So you could very well have, like, if you weren't careful, you could have very well have gotten like something that just was not meant for actually playing with.
I see that, because there were retailers that did have YouTube channels that would promote their like really low power, cheap airsoft guns. Be like, you can get this M16 with the grenade launcher for only $60, and it's like, this is not.
I mean, to a person just barely getting into airsoft, right? Who again didn't have grow up with like the same knowledge that we put out like here at GI, right?
Yep.
You could, and I understand a lot of people even nowadays, right, that they could easily get lost or persuaded into a deal that really is too good to be true, because it's not.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
It is too good to be true.
It is too good to be true, right? Like I told you, like I one of the first companies that I remember being available, like, 'cause it was kind of the same thing. Only like when I was starting, polymer was becoming a little bit more popular, but there was still plenty of like plastic, and I mean ABS plastic guns that were out there.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of times they didn't distinguish even between that. Sometimes like only like really good websites like GI would actually distinguish between like the different materials. We say materials that are built, right? A lot of times it was just plastic, and you didn't know it was either plastic or metal. So it could be any type of plastic. It wasn't until later on that you found out that it was like, okay, this is the good plastic, right? But you had to talk to someone who knew.
Honestly, I really liked that GI at that time was really forward thinking about letting people know, like, hey, this is polymer, not plastic, and showing the differences. Because I think one of the main reasons why the Combat Machine series took off so well is because of GI, and they did that torture test back then, and the team then showed like its capabilities. So, they showed the internals, they showed the externals, they did that torture test, and I think, especially at the price point, because back then they were retailing for like $150, which by today's standard is crazy.
That is actually like if I saw a G&G Combat Machine, like a CM16 like Raider, right, which either the short or the long, if I saw that going for like $150, that is actually a steal.
Yeah,
that is actually a really good deal. I mean, granted, that's where I feel like it should be generally, but that is a really good price point.
Yeah,
the most I would normally want to see it at would be like maybe 180, maybe 200, like at most. Because again, just the options that are available now. Because again, a G&G Combat Machine, just Raider, the same model that I mentioned, $220.
No, yeah, exactly. That, and I mean, that comes with the time.
Inflation,
right?
Of course.
That was what, 13 to 15 years ago, right?
It's even shorter, but yeah,
something like that. So, yeah, it definitely shows the progress in airsoft externally, like quality-wise for externals, because after G&G came out with polymer guns, a lot of other companies started coming out with polymer guns.
Their own polymer builds.
So Lancer Tactical came out with the Gen 2 line. They moved from ABS plastic to polymer. Classic Army came out with their polymer line. Some newer contenders, Arcturus, they now have, well, when they dropped, I do believe they had both polymer and metal options available, which is cool because they knew the market. But then just a whole bunch of different companies started following suit with trying to make more reliable airsoft guns at an affordable cost. And a lot of companies have moved away from using the ABS plastic.
Yes, which I'm glad to see. Again, it was one of the things that G&G really did set the trend at the time. G&G, like, again, I know there are a lot of G&G fanboys out there, and don't get me wrong, I completely understand why, right? I used to be a huge G&G fanboy back in the day. Anytime G&G released a new model, I was always hyped. There was one model specifically. Do you remember when G&G launched their initial like gas blowback rifle lineup?
Yeah.
I remember Justin was the one that, like, one of the first guys I remember, he waited in line to go in and grab one, and it broke immediately.
What?
Yeah, his gave him a lot of problems. But like either way, we were like always constantly following like the production of like new G&G models, right? Like, oh, it's gonna be so cool. We'll never own it, but it's gonna be so cool, right? Because a little more out of our budget. But no, they definitely helped set the trend for what a beginner airsofter and because again, at the end of the day, most of us, when we were getting into airsoft at that time, we are beginners.
Yep.
We are 100% beginners. There's no way around it. So we were looking for something that was going to be affordable, decent quality. Again, we're going to have pretty tough externals for the rigors of play.
Yep.
Right? And G&G really helped set that trend forward. But it is kind of funny now, again, if you look at right now who is, I feel, the trendsetters as far as companies go in terms of like what are they offering for beginner players and really helping grow the market. It's definitely not G&G anymore. I'd say it's them to an extent because of the legacy they built. And it can still be felt today in other companies, but it's not G&G themselves, honestly, that I feel like is really paving the way as far as making it a lot easier and raising the standard of what you can expect as a beginner airsofter.
Well, since we talked about the external quality of airsoft guns, I think we've kind of caught up to modern day. You do see a lot of companies coming out with more full metal airsoft guns. You know, there's, of course, Classic Army still makes some, but G&G has, of course, their full metal line. KWA
is pretty much caught up until like externally wise, caught up until what you can find nowadays.
Yeah. So I'll say we should move on to the internals, because we'll start off when Tokyo Marui released the AEG. It was new to the market. It was an electric system. For those of you guys that are new to airsoft and don't know what it means, AEG stands for automatic electric gun, meaning your airsoft gun is powered by a battery. The battery powers a motor that spins a gear set that pulls the piston back, that shoots forward and shoots the BB out of the barrel, as simply as I could put it. And that is been the standard in airsoft for, like, even today. Like, that simple aspect of what I just said is what I'd say 90% of airsoft guns do today.
The basic like working mechanism behind like a gearbox itself, right? The process, even though there can be variations of that, of course, and maybe deviations, something like EBBs, right? Or maybe like something along those lines, or something along those lines, right? There's most of the time, most companies are going to copy that same design, maybe just adding their few little quirks of their own in there.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. So, when Tokyo Marui released between the 80s and 90s, we started seeing an aftermarket support for the Marui system, being gear sets, pistons, motors, and that's kind of how it was. Like, outside of the motor and the wiring itself, the electronics were simple, and then upgrades for the airsoft gun would be the mechanical stuff, the gear sets and other things, to like the compression set to fine tune the airsoft gun to be as effective as possible. And again, that was standard, and that mentality you'll still see in today's upgrades. That's why you see like the high speed gear sets. You'll see high torque or high speed or balance motors and things like that. But then I would say, I want to say late 2000s, beginning of 2010s, we started seeing the infancy of MOSFETs, electronics in airsoft guns. Do
I hear Burst Wizard?
No, yes, the Burst Wizard was the first MOSFET that I was introduced to.
That's the first one that I can think of.
Yeah. I'm not.
I don't know if it's the first one. We don't know.
I don't think they are. But at the time, it was pretty revolutionary, because you would take it and you could either do the plug and play to use it as a basic MOSFET, or you can wire it into your existing gearbox, like trigger assembly, and then you can have programmability features. Like you could lock it to semi, or like do a 3-round burst, or things like that. It wasn't as advanced as MOSFETs are now, but it gave you options, especially if you're doing a really stress-intensive build, like high FPS or high rates of fire. That's where it really came in and shined, even though by today's standards,
they're pretty primitive.
No, yeah. Yeah, maybe I'm being a little harsh, and saying sucked is...
they're a little primitive. No, they sucked, man.
No, yeah, they were a little primitive. And honestly, I would say because of its infancy and where it was released in Airsoft at the time, it was arguably not even worth it to do MOSFET at the time, because we did see such an increase from I'd say the beginning of the 2000s up until 2010. We saw such an increase in aftermarket support, especially the technology in motors, and
that's even batteries too, though.
Yeah, even batteries. Do you remember LiFePO batteries, lithium phosphate?
I remember vaguely hearing this term, but I remember going to certain shops and not really seeing them, honestly.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing maybe one.
Yeah.
And it was just most of them was either nickel metal hydride batteries, right?
Yeah,
or you get the LiPo.
Yeah, lithium polymer. And see, it's fun because I've heard a lot of people in the live stream saying that their company is starting to come out with more lithium phosphate batteries, which is very interesting to see, because I believe it was supposed to be a safer or more reliable form of lithium battery. So
not as unstable.
Yeah, I didn't look too much into it, because the fad of LiFePO batteries in Airsoft was really quick. It died out within a year or two. You didn't see it.
I wonder why, though.
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. But yeah, just all of those different things in conjunction. You could build a banging airsoft gun that's fine-tuned without a MOSFET.
Yeah, even by today's standards, they're actually really high-performing guns.
Oh, absolutely. You can get really crisp trigger response, really good rate of fire. You can get really high FPS. You can do all of that without a MOSFET.
Tight compression.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, compression doesn't even have anything to do with electronics.
Just in general, the fact that they were available to, and that you could get I remember a few older guys saying that, and I remember. Do you remember the guys from FLT?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of their owners that I actually got to meet in person, very nice guy. Very nice guy. If you guys are watching, you guys are cool. I doubt if they're watching. But they came in, right, and we started talking, we started chit-chatting, and they started letting me know what their favorite guns were. You know what they said his favorite gun was? P90.
Really?
He was a huge fan of the P90. He loves working on the P90. And apparently, he would bring it out to the field, and everyone used to say, oh, that's a bitch gun, right? That's not my words. These are the people that he was confronting with, right? And it was a bitch gun, right? Because it was, very small. It wasn't as, I guess, manly looking, I guess, as, a fucking M16 or whatever, right?
Okay.
But because he had tuned it so finely and so perfectly, even though it was, using, obviously, a much shorter barrel setup, right? He was out shooting everyone else in the field.
Oh, I bet.
He was getting perfect 400 FPS consistently.
Oh, man, I bet. I absolutely bet. That's so...
And he would kill them, right? And they would be walking out to the dead box, and they'd be like, not so much of a bitch gun now, huh?
Yeah. Stupid.
Yeah. I love my P90s. P90 stands.
Yeah. Oh, I love the P90 too. It's a very iconic and nostalgic gun for me. But yeah, that was the standard in Airsoft. Just the simple, classic trigger switch, trigger shuttle, and then I'd say coming into 2016, maybe.
So late 2010s.
Yeah, mid to late 2010s, we started seeing electronic MOSFETs come out that were trigger boards to replace the existing MOSFETs. So they weren't ones that you had to wire in or plug and play or solder into existing electronics. It was a complete
replacement of the wire harness entirely.
Exactly. And that's where we started seeing a lot of development in really fine-tuning the performance in terms of rate of fire and trigger response. Because again, you could get really high rates of fire, you can get really good trigger response without a MOSFET. But with the introduction of active braking, that changed the standard, I guess, of how a quote-unquote high-end airsoft gun or premium airsoft gun, I don't even know how to title it.
How it's perceived, what can you expect now from
exactly.
an airsoft gun. I feel I have to give credit where credit is due. I don't know if they're the first one, but I remember the only company, or the first company that I remember offering that entirely built-in MOSFET that wasn't just soldered in, it was a whole unit out of the box, was Ares. Actually, they were one of the,
you know what?
I don't know if they're the first one. I don't want to say they are, but they're the first ones that I remember being that widely available on a commercial level, and that name being like so widely known. You know what I mean?
No, I honestly agree with that. I think they were the first ones out of the box that were releasing a gun that had some programmability, at least to my knowledge as well.
And at the time, they weren't that expensive. They weren't like, at least again, most of the models were typically, if I remember correctly, under $300.
I was just about to say that I believe you could find them anywhere from like maybe $230 on the really low end, and then going up to like $350-ish. And it depends, because they were using polymer receivers, but they did come equipped with, at the time, those quote unquote premium electronics, which they have worked on over the years and they have improved upon, because I have a Gen 1 Honey Badger. I forget the AM model. It's like AM005.
So,
is it 005?
I think it's 005. The only reason I know that is because Sigma Brendan, that's one he has.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I had that. And if you didn't buy the programming unit to change the settings on the ETU of the Ares Amoeba gearbox, you would fuck that thing up.
Yeah, it was very much, again, we're getting into this is infancy compared to like what we actually have nowadays, right? Where it's, now we actually do have stuff like programmable triggers and everything. Back then, you actually did have to buy a separate programming module in order to adjust the settings, not just for like different types of fire, but for what type of battery you were going to be using, whether you were using a 7.4 or 11.1. Because you can't just, even though theoretically, yes, you can plug in a 7.4 and 11.1 as is, and it will function, like it'll shoot.
No, yeah, you could actually physically do it, but if it's not programmed correctly, the Ares ETU would
burn out.
Yeah, exactly. And because it was proprietary to the gearbox, it was made to fit into the gearbox by itself, and it couldn't take a standard electronic system. That was like a pitfall for it. If it burned out, you'd have to, at the time, Z-Shot was the only one that sold the ETU, and the ETU replacement was like $150 to $200. It was so expensive that like you would argue, like, is this gun even worth repairing?
The cost of that is the cost of a new gun.
Exactly. So yeah, that was, at least to my knowledge, the first like ETU. There were micro switches in Airsoft way before that. So some people might get confused because the term like ETU or electronic trigger and micro switch do get swapped. But a micro switch is basically, I don't even know how to think of like a mouse click without advanced electronics, without the programmability aspect.
That's actually, that kind of gets it. That kind of gets the message across. Because micro switch triggers, usually you do get that like mechanical.
Yeah, exactly, right. Like the Arcturus gearboxes. If it's not like a PE or ME model that has like the Perun MOSFET in there, it's just a mouse button, a mouse click that you just press, instead of having a traditional shuttle that's basically a wall socket, or it's like a plug going in and out of the socket, right? That's gonna get clipped. But yeah, that was it. But then, like I said, the mid to late 2000s, we started seeing. You remember the Spectre BTC?
Yes.
That was one of the first MOSFETs that I heard of. And
I remember that being like a big competitor to like Gate Titan as well.
Yeah, Gate Titan. And then later on, Perun came out. And then I think around that same time, Jeff Tron came out with the Leviathan series. And I'm talking specifically about trigger board MOSFETs, not ones that you wire in, because there were other companies that did release basic MOSFETs that helped control electricity flow throughout the gun, but didn't offer any programmability or any advanced features to modern or program the gun, in a sense. Yeah, so companies like Gate and Jeff Tron, and I don't know if Spectre is still around. Perun, they all offer a premium electronic suite, if you will, something that you can put into your airsoft gun and basically turn your gearbox into a computer, a mechanical computer, if you will.
It's basically giving you like more different like options as far as programmability. So again, like we mentioned earlier, active braking was one.
Yep.
There are some like the Gate Titan. I actually do own a few Gate Titans on my guns that'll offer adjustments on the trigger pull. How much of a trigger pull do you want before it actually starts shooting, whether you want more or less. Adjusting active braking, that was one we mentioned. Pre-cocking, that's another one.
That was one of the huge ones too. For those of you guys that don't know what pre-cocking is, basically in a normal gearbox, the piston is sitting in a forward position with no tension on the piston or additional tension from the spring. If it's as much tension.
When you pre-cock it, basically like it's in one set set position normally. However, pre-cocking basically is going to go ahead and have it set back.
Exactly. Think of like a bolt action sniper rifle.
Yeah.
How you pull it back in a box. It's going to be in that back position. So when you pull the trigger,
it's just instantly. The first shot is always going to be much faster.
It just releases it, and then it resets it to that back position. And actually, that isn't really something new in Airsoft though, because the one gun that I know that had it with a completely standard electronics was the Tokyo Marui PSG-1. There's the piston was made to sit back, so you had the advantage of the DMR being especially because it had like a super long piston. Yeah. There was just a lot of space to travel. So
PSG-1 has some weird internals, man.
It does. I just want it.
Should have gotten it, man.
I know, for real. But yeah, it's not foreign, but it became more accessible to airsofters in that, and it gave an edge, especially in the competitive scene, which is why I think it took off. But then it also offered you other programmability, like what Isaiah said, just where the gun actually fires during the trigger pull. You can fine tune that. You could fine tune the active braking, which we explained as well. Basically, it turns on and off the motor relatively quick.
I'd say pretty quickly, honestly. That's like, we're talking like...
compared to standard.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It prevents overcycling as well, which is like the biggest feature of active braking. And then you could program different fire modes. So instead of just semi and full auto, you could program like semi and a 3-round burst, or semi-auto only, or 3-round burst and full auto, 5-round burst and full auto. But you could also control the rate of fire as well. So if your gun shot like super fast, like let's say you had a DSG and it shot like 50 rounds a second, give or take. With that type of software, you could tone it down so the gearbox isn't cycling as fast, and you can meet your field
requirements, the rules, in case they have an RPS rule or something.
Exactly. So it did provide a lot more customization to your airsoft gun.
And not only that, it was actually things like the Gate Titan made it very easy to do so, because a lot of MOSFETs, or micro switches or ETUs, I should say, you actually go in there and actually like either manually adjust it there.
Yep.
This one was, again, like talking like Gate Titans and some of the higher end stuff, you plug into a computer, into a desktop, or even like you access through apps on your phone.
Yep.
Right, and you can go ahead and adjust settings that way. That's like, if you told me when I started Airsoft, when I was first getting into it, right, and I started learning the basics, that we're going to get to a point where you're going to have a smartphone, which you could do an app, modify all the options for your airsoft gun through your phone. That's insane. That's like some shit out of like Back to the Future or something.
No, I agree with that. If you were to tell me this iPod Touch, where I'm playing Angry Birds, will be able to adjust my airsoft gun, I call you crazy. I'd
call cap on that.
Yeah, I call you crazy. But even with the introduction of MOSFETs, that also opened up room for like adjustable triggers as well. Like Speed, company Speed, I believe they're based out of Canada. They were one of the first companies that I remember to come out with an adjustable trigger.
Same.
Actually manually adjust the way the trigger moves. So you could shorten the length of pull on the trigger, how far it travels back, and you could set where it's supposed to stop. And
bear in mind, this was one of those things that like people, like techs have been doing for years.
Oh yeah.
Right beforehand, but it just made it a lot easier.
Yeah, people like techs back then, what they would do is they'd shim it somehow.
What would they use for shims?
Taylor's favorite one was credit cards.
Really? That was it?
Yeah, he'd cut them, glue them, file them down into like a perfect like block or whatever, and then just place it as needed, and then adjust it that way.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. But then, it just opened up a whole new realm. But let me dial it back a little bit, because we did kind of skip forward in time with just plain AEGs. Because I'd say in 2010 to 2011, HPA became a thing. And
the hype was real.
No, man. the hype is still real.
I mean, we're still feeling it to this day, right? But like, I personally feel like the hype has gone down a little bit, just because advancements in technology. We are seeing that and even though it's not going to be exactly, I will give the HPA system credit where credit is due. There is still not a system, I believe, that can compete with just the instantaneous trigger pull, right, that you get from an HPA build. But I feel like AEGs are getting to that point where they're getting really fucking close.
Oh, absolutely. I will say that I have seen some builds that are almost instantaneous in terms of AEGs compared to an HPA system. But again, I talked about it earlier. HPA or a pressurized gas-powered system isn't really new to Airsoft, because before Tokyo Marine released AEG, again, we talked about how there were gas-powered airsoft guns. Now, with HPA, specifically Polar Star, they were the ones to change
They changed the game.
Yeah. I was trying to fine-tune a little bit more, but yeah, they did change the game because they came out with an HPA system that had electronics. So you could fine-tune this gas-powered system to the T. Like, you could do so much. And even to this day, I say it time and time again, what HPA has on the airsoft market is its ability to meet any requirement or anything that you want to do. I've seen insane rate of fire builds for Polar Star or HPA systems. I have seen incredible range, FPS, like goals achieved in Airsoft with HPA systems. And because of this efficient system of HPA with electronics, it did change the game. And honestly, that's kind of why there are those douchebags out there.
Yeah.
Because it's so, even though it was expensive, it was easily attainable.
Yeah. Right? It was something that you could go into, like, any, I mean, it's still to this day, right? You still can. You can just order off any website, Airsoft GI. But, you know, it's one of those things where it's just like, because it's so expensive, it almost kind of felt like it became a flex.
It did. It honestly did, because I would say I think it dropped in 2011. I think I remember seeing it in 2010 and thinking that was the coolest fucking thing, because at the time, I had a few airsoft guns, but I didn't have a lot of batteries at the time, which is why I'm such a battery, like, that's why I have my lithium bomb.
Such a battery whore.
Yeah. But at the time I thought, this is a gas system that takes AEG magazines. So my knowledge to that point, there was only AEGs and gas blowbacks. So I used an HPA system. It had a tank that I was very familiar with because I came from paintball. So you had a gun that in theory essentially works like a paintball gun, but you don't need to buy $50 magazines to work with it. My existing AEG magazines would work with the gun and I could run it. And that was absolutely astonishing to me. And I think that was astonishing to a lot of people.
Oh, no, it was. I'm going to be honest, though. That's a confession. You gave a confession to me the other day, so I feel like I should start.
Okay.
Even when the hype was like at its most high for HPA, I never liked HPA.
Really?
Yep. Well, okay, like, and there's a reason why, right? It's more of like an aesthetic thing. There's a bit of a practical application for it as well, and I've told you before, but one of the main drawing points for me into Airsoft was because of how realistic it was. Because I also came from paintball, and I was like, man, this shit sucks. Like, I liked it, it's fun, but I'm like, man, I gotta worry about this fucking big ass hopper.
Yeah.
I can't fucking ADS like I see in video games.
I can't shoulder the gun.
The
tank
right?
is awkward.
Or if I've seen other guys rig where they would have like the external tank as well, right? They would wear the big scuba tanks in their back. I'm like, I don't want to do that shit. I don't mind carrying the weight, but it's like, why am I gonna do that? I can't move around. I want it to be more realistic. And I would see when I play paintball what these airsofters were doing, and I literally was like, oh man, that paintball's weird. It's so cool. There's like, where's the hopper? Right? Where's the fucking tank for it?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's what that is.
I remember you told me that.
Yeah, so it's like, that and also just getting the line cost and shit. And also the startup cost for it as well. Like, that was always, and to this day, that's still one of my biggest gripes about HPA, is just the sheer cost.
Well, I would say it has dramatically increased. So, back when HPA first came out, I believe the unit was like $350 bucks.
That's the price I remember. That's the price I remember.
The cost of a full metal high-end airsoft guns like KWA, VFC, even some of the higher-end G&G stuff.
Even some TM stuff was around that price.
It was hard because they sold it as a unit. On top of that $350 cost just for like the fusion engine, right? You'd have to buy the hose, you'd have to buy the regulator, you'd have to buy the tank, and then I believe the unit did come with. It does, of course, it comes with FCU, but it also needed a battery to the JST or JTS connector.
JST.
Yeah. That needed to program the electronics on there, which wasn't expensive. It was like $5-10. Even to nowadays, it's not that expensive. But just for the cost of all that, not even including the airsoft gun, that's assuming you have an airsoft gun to put it in. You were looking at least, if you're going really budget at the time, like a $500 to $600 budget just for the essentials needed to use the unit, not even including a base airsoft gun.
Yeah, like I just at the time it was very difficult. But I was impressed. I will say this, even then I was still impressed again with the performance aspect of it and the fact that it was a system that allowed you to play. Because again, this is before quick change spring systems were really a thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Actually, that's a good point too, because it was HPA. You could adjust the FPS on the fly, and like me, I have this.
Some people, that's too much power.
I'm
just throwing that out.
No, it is absolutely too much power. Some people are freaking irresponsible. They didn't have an Uncle Ben that died for them.
They didn't have Martha or Thomas Wayne to die beforehand.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy because you could go to an indoor field, shoot 350 FPS, and then okay, I'm going to go play outdoors. I need 400. You're good. It was that simple at a time where quick change wasn't a thing. And that was so attractive that people that had the money, or people that had parents that had the money.
Yeah, that sounds more like it, honestly.
Could do that. And granted, I can't say for everybody because I own HP systems too. And I know plenty of people who own HP systems that are responsible.
I'm looking for one as well. I need one.
Well, you need it for the 240 Bravo.
Yeah, I need it for the 240 Bravo. But still, it counts.
Yeah, it does. But it was such a huge leap in terms of some performance that you can get out of an airsoft gun with the modularity as fast as you could adjust it. That made it so revolutionary
and
to
enticing.
Airsoft. Yeah, and enticing. So here's the thing. With all those pros that I said about HPA system, and I do have my own HPA systems as well. I've owned quite a few. I after using them over a period of time, I learned the drawbacks of it. And one thing that was really, really annoying for me using an HPA system was having a finite amount of air. You are limited to the amount of air that the tank can hold.
So who would have thunk, right? That old Marui man, Tokyo Marui commercial back in the day.
Still right.
Still relevant,
It was
man.
still right.
More than 20 years and still relevant. Well, actually, at the time, I guess it would be like, no, fuck it, 20 years. More than 20 years later, it's still relevant.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's accurate. Because early 90s.
Yeah, sorry, quick math. That's not my specialty.
Yeah. So that is the one thing about HPA that I do not like. Now, for those of you that run HPA in a indoor field where you can fill your tanks really easily, that's great.
Great.
Fine and dandy, it's easy for you.
Admit, though, that that's not the case for everyone.
Oh, definitely not
the case.
Because when I was using my HPA system, I was playing at fields where I'd have to walk from the airsoft section to the paintball section, which was just irritating because I'm lazy.
But I say, it doesn't sound too bad.
No, before you and I went to Mr. Paintball and played,
okay.
I have gone to Mr. Paintball quite a few times by that point, and I was running one of my HPA systems there. And where their paintball station was, compared to where we played airsoft, was like half a mile up the road. So yeah, so
in full kit in the sun. Yeah.
Let me tell you something. The event that I played, the games, we played I think 4 games that day. Each game was at least 2 hours.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's Mr. Paintball. That place was huge.
And so much brush.
Oh yes.
So many BBs.
I came home that day with so many scratches all over my body that I don't even know I had.
So many tanks I had to fill. Yeah, that's the one thing. Now, granted, if in ideal conditions and you can refill your tank easily, that's fantastic. That is great for you. And again, I do always give the testament to the HPA systems. For me personally, just the finite amount of air that you get with the tank is the hindrance. Now, I have seen really, really like Gucci'd out rigs where they have like a dual or even like a tri-tank system. But at that point, it's like, okay, I'm not trying to carry all that shit.
Yeah, and not only that too, like I feel like HPA really requires the venue to like really cater to it and be a really convenient spot in order for it to be like, okay, cool. Or you have to have like a lot of shit pre-prepared.
Yep.
And it works better, I feel like, in a walk-on situation.
Oh yeah.
Or in an indoor environment, assuming that they have
the guys that can run Milsim with the HPA system.
I know a few of them, and they do have it rough. They've told me before, like, it's like, you're already limited on ammo, but even when they do have ammo, they're like,
is that worth that shot?
Is it worth that shot?
Okay, so I do have another confession. I would say because of how popular HPA systems were in the early 2010s, I would say maybe like 2013. By that point, I was so familiar with the HPA system with the hose. I was at a field one time, and I saw a dude like having trouble with like his plate carrier or something, and his gun was on a sling. He unbuckled it and handed it to his friend, and I thought, how the hell you do that? I completely forgot that AEGs were a thing, and you didn't need the hose. I was like, what the?
Yo, what kind of system is that? Where's the tank go?
Really embarrassing. But yeah, it was because not only because Polestar came out, but then shortly after Wolverine came out with the SMP, and even from then there are other companies that came out. Redline had their own system. Nowadays you can still find both Polestar and Wolverine. Those are the most popular systems. But Gate released their own HPA system. Gate, who makes the Titan and the Warfed and all of those MOSFETs, they have their own HPA system that's actually can work in conjunction with I believe, is it the Titan? It works with one of their MOSFETs that acts like an ETU.
Huh.
So
that's really cool.
Yeah, the integration of that's really crazy. They even like make their own gearbox that'll perfectly align everything. Yeah, it's really sick.
Is those new? What is it? Those Eon gearboxes?
Yeah.
Oh yes, those gearboxes are nice.
Oh, absolutely.
I love the little adjustment windows that you get, just so you can. It's so easy to go ahead and see everything. It's so convenient.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but just seeing that evolution, because even now, I'd say after the MTW from Wolverine, even the MTW wasn't really revolutionary because that came out, I think, like
2017 or 2018.
Yeah, 2017, 2018. The best thing, because it's essentially, to my understanding, a Inferno Gen 2. It's essentially an Inferno Gen 2.
Yeah, it's using that.
In their own receiver, unique to the gun, that is durable as all hell.
It's like, what is it, like 80% lower or something?
It's not made from it 80% lower, but it has the quality of like a real receiver, right? And go watch their torture test video on it. It's absolutely
it's hilarious, dude. Yeah. Motherfuckers literally just across the room, and it's like,
it's like a concrete wall. It's hilarious. Yeah, but with that system, you could use the MTW and any of their other attachments, like the Quake stock or the CO2 or HPA stock adapter. It worked with all that while being self-contained, which is absolutely cool. But I'd say in terms of an HPA system, because it came out so hot and it already had that level of programmability and performance and adjustability and all that, it's kind of stagnated.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. It has stagnated, but I will say I feel like it left a legacy that, again, like just like what G&G did back in the day when it came to like, their externals and what they offer for beginner players. I feel like HPA, like the system overall, really helped kind of like, again, pave the way for other companies to come out with, again, revolutionize their technology, their internals to match that, right? Because one of the things, or one of the biggest trends that I've noticed, again, recently is that within, I would say like 2017, right? When we started getting the Lance Tactical Gen 2s, the Classic Army skirmishes, right? We started seeing more companies come out, similar to Ares, with a pre-installed ETU or pre-installed MOSFET, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, honestly, After,
not Gen 2s because those don't have but like the Gen 2 Pro lines where they had the ETUs already pre-installed.
Yes, they had ETUs.
But more specifically, I want to give a shout out to, I guess, Classic Army though, with their skirmish lineup and their Nemesis line.
Yeah.
Because they featured the ECS programmable trigger unit, which is like, when I think of like the first convenient like ETU or programmable like gun out of the box, I think of the Classic Armies.
I would agree to that. So Classic Army, they actually went through a revolution really quick because when they released their skirmish line, they had like the Pro line MOSFET, basic MOSFET with standard like trigger shuttle. But then they came out with the Nemesis line that had the ECS, the electronic control system. Boy, that out of the box was crazy.
It's still, to this day, even in 2023, right? How many, 6 years later?
Yeah.
That is still one of my favorite MOSFETs, or favorite ETUs, and just favorite lines overall. Classic Army is still one of my favorite brands, actually. If I had to give a list of my top 3 favorite brands, Classic Army is up there.
I respect that. I mean, it's still a great performing MOSFET that does have active braking and a little bit of programmability, which dramatically improves your performance. After Classic Army, though, in like 2017, 2018, who else came out with a gun that had an ETU out of the box? Oh, no. Actually, let's turn it back. Before Classic Army, G&G had their ETU. It was... we all know. It wasn't the ETU. So this is funny because it wasn't the ETU specifically. It was the MOSFET. So the ETU was actually separate from the MOSFET.
Yes. So
the MOSFET was the burning problem. It would burn out on higher voltage batteries, or if you shot the gun a specific way. Lame. But they came out with that with the Combat Machine 2.0 series. I want to say 2016, 2017, 2015, because they had the Predator out at that time, and the Predator had an ETU. And
it was a while though before we started seeing like the Combat Machine like Raider 2.0s though. I think those started coming out in like 2017, 2018, at least.
Oh no, actually, that's valid because it wasn't called the 2.0 at the time. They did include it in some of the Airsoft guns, but even G&G has gone through iterations of their ETU, and now the G2 gearbox, and now even the G3 gearbox,
which is dope.
It's pretty cool. I gotta say, it's pretty nice. But so let's just say G&G. They're not the first ones to include a MOSFET out of the box. Like Crytek had a basic MOSFET out of the box.
That's a name that, like, back in the day was definitely on top.
No, oh yeah, definitely.
How the mighty have fallen.
By today's standards, there are a lot of more affordable airsoft guns that can outperform, like the MGC4.
I'm just saying, right? Just available right there.
Okay. We use the knowledge that we have now, but so like they were, I believe, the first ones that did it. But then like G&P, they had their i5 gearbox that had an ETU MOSFET. That thing sucked too, unfortunately. We all know. But then
I think like the quality of like MOSFETs or just ETUs, I should say, in general, have improved for sure within like out of the box guns.
Absolutely,
they definitely have improved. And I think again that's just something that we have to owe to like HPA systems as a whole, because they kind of like lit that fire under a lot of manufacturers, as being like, hey, you want to go ahead and get this level of value or this level of programmability, why not just have that out of the gun, out of the box, right? And I feel like, again, you're right. Like there's been a lot of companies that have been coming out of the woodwork that will just have like, oh yeah, that's one of the selling features is programmable ETU or programmable MOSFET pre-installed right out of the box.
I actually agree to that, but I would throw in MOSFETs as well, aftermarket MOSFETs in with the pull starts, because you were able to upgrade your airsoft gun. It forced the hand of a lot of airsoft manufacturers to try to make their own, right? And so again, G&G, Classic Army, Lancer Tactical had their Pro Line series that had the ETU that had problems as well. They improved upon actually within the past couple of years, but then in like 2020 or 2021? I
want to say 2020 when the Gen 3s actually started coming out.
That honestly, well, even then there was the SEMA Platinum. Their ETU is a hit or miss. I've said it on stream.
I've said it before. We actually just like filmed the video. I think that one should be dropping next week.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, we're talking about like the Echo One SEMA Platinum, and again, it's a fine gun. It works great. It's just we have our gripes a little bit about the ETU again, but it's definitely a lot better quality than what we've seen before in the past.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I think that when the Lancer Tactical Gen 3 came out, when Zion Arms was in its infancy and the Nebula MOSFET came out of the box, that changed the internal performance of an airsoft gun out of the box. Like, outside of the classic Army, that at the time, the 2017, 2018 years, they had semi-auto only 3-round burst, 5-round burst. I think that was the most programmability that you can get out of the box in an airsoft gun.
I think so.
Outside of the areas with the programmable switch, I'm talking about just a gun by itself, just plug in the battery.
These Gen 3s, you get them, because they're still available on our website, right? Yep. You get them, you can get the 3-round burst, you can get a 5-round burst, you can get, I believe you also get 4-round burst as well.
Yeah, you can do anywhere from semi-auto only, 2-round burst up to 5-round burst.
But with a binary trigger.
Binary trigger. That was actually something that was newer to airsoft as well. I think binary trigger started becoming a thing in like
2019, I think. Maybe even earlier.
Maybe later. Maybe 2020.
Because I remember hearing the term binary trigger in 2019.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe 2019 then. But and then have active braking. But on top of that, we did a torture test on the Lancer Tactical Gen 3 as well, and the electronics, and how durable that MOSFET is out of the box is pretty crazy as well. You don't really see that nowadays
from many companies, and pretty much other companies at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like, again, there is some programmability. Classic Army still has theirs. Is the SEMA Platinum MOSFET programmable? I don't think so.
I don't think we could find out whether or not it was or wasn't.
I remember the G&G 2.0 could be programmed to a 3-round burst.
Yeah.
But I think that was it, right?
Yeah.
Ares, let
us know in the comments.
Yeah, I believe Ares with the Amoeba line originally, they could do a 3 or 5-round burst.
It was a 3 or 5 round, if I remember correctly, too.
And then semi-auto only. So about the same as classic Army. So very interesting. But yeah, having just the standard of airsoft change from where it began, even considering the era of like when the AEG was introduced. That era before, no, you're good. The era before, starting with the AEG, coming up till now, you are getting so much adjustability and performance, especially at an affordable cost. Like the Lancer Tactical Gen 3s, I think the lowest is like $215, right?
Gen 3s?
Yeah.
I think I remember, like, well, then again, I guess, like, yeah, I believe $215, $210, I think would be like the lowest cost.
Oh, yeah, see, like that's actually really insane. But not saying like the Classic Arm ECS skirmish line, those are like $230-ish in price.
The
range.
lowest I think you can get, I think the lowest costing one would either be the PXG9 or the AR4. But at GI, honestly, we discount those like a good amount too. Like they're going for a fucking steal. Some of them are less than $200. Yeah, the AR4.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, right now. Damn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So make sure you check out our specials page.
Oh yeah.
But
I think overall, honestly, I'm just happy to see that there actually is a progression in terms of technology. And I know that obviously you and I would like to clown on some of the younger kids. Obviously, like within the male game, it's all just fun and games, right?
Oh,
but at the end of the day,
when do I talk shit?
No, not talking shit.
I immediately thought about Rosmento.
That's the thing. But like, no, we like to like say like, oh, you younger fellas, you don't know how hard it was back. Yeah, I get it. We do the boomer thing, right? Yeah. And someone was doing the same thing to us when we first started airsoft, right?
This airsoft gun right here, I built. I don't even remember when I finished it, but I remember building this airsoft gun. This doesn't have a MOSFET. It's shooting like 420 FPS. It's at the time when I built this, when I started this gun, it was pretty damn good. It was pretty damn good then. I'd say like 70% of airsoft guns.
Yeah.
But this is dated. Like honestly, like MGC4 Mark II right here. Honestly, this build, I don't regret. But
it's just okay. It's hard.
It shows its age.
Yes, you can't really. It's not a fair comparison at the end of the day because again, newer technology, newer advancements, new standard versus what was available at the time.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
we do the boomer thing, right? Where we go ahead and like, oh yeah, back in my day, we had Frank actually used to do the same thing when we had the Mark 12, the D-Boys Mark 12 SPR on the wall. When he saw it, he was like, man, you kids don't know how easy you have it. Back in my day, we had to go ahead and build that thing. You had to buy the whole kit. You had to buy the rail, and I was like, all right, man.
Okay, boomer.
Even though we do that, I am glad to see that there is a progression, and I'm glad that the standard of airsoft has increased because again, when I fucking started, I was scammed. I was fucking like taken advantage of like crazy. Granted, I was kind of dumb, so I get it, right? Like, take advantage of the dumb kid, whatever. But like, even then, I didn't get anywhere near the same level of information that you guys are getting now that we put out there. I wish that was more widely available. I would have listened to me. I would have listened to you.
Yeah.
No. I feel like we do a good job of putting this information out there and showing what you can get and really helping increase that standard and letting customers know, hey, you don't have to settle for something that's like, you know, whatever some retailer just wants to shove in your face. You have options.
Absolutely. And again, like with the standard being like have improved and changed and gotten better, I do think, like, of course we say you guys, you newer players are spoiled, but that's a little bitterness on our end because we had to go through the hardship of not having quick change spring systems or programmable triggers and have all this adjustment and stuff. We had to go through the old days of like building it out ourselves or finding a tech that knew how to do it, or like me taking apart the gun trying to do this one upgrade that was really simple, but you fuck it up. Fuck it up.
You know how much it pains me that I see, like, for example, the Lancer Tactical LT31 Raven, right? Mm-hmm. Their version of, like, it's a standard Gen 2, but it looks exact. It's just Mark 18 Mod 1, but it's got the, like, basically, I'm going to say it, it's got the correct down unit defense style rail on there. You know how much that pains me? I spent $130 on the Mad Bull rail to put it on my classic Army. And then I still had to get the gearbox to work, right? It didn't have a quick change spring system. It didn't have a Type 4 barrel. It didn't have a rotary style hop chamber. Like, I look at that gun.
Actually, my Block 2 is still on a combat machine.
Yeah.
Actually, it's technically the GR15, so it has the pneumatic blowback system.
That
had the mock bolt. No quick change spring system.
Nothing.
No premium electronics.
Bare bones.
Did I put them on? No, I don't think I put a MOSFET in there. Last time I touched that gun was like, I think 2014.
I don't have a MOSFET on mine either.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
We should run it.
Hell yeah.
Actually, I'm down.
But like, no, it's just like, I look at the guns like that you guys have, the options you guys have nowadays, and I am jealous. Like, I genuinely am jealous because I wish I would have started now, because I genuinely feel like it is now so much easier to get into airsoft. It's easier now than it ever has been before.
Not only that, but like, I would say the cost of entry is relatively the same, but what you get quality wise is dramatically better.
Even like companies now, like, that are still coming out now, we still have companies that are coming out. Like, one of our favorite companies that, again, we do say it a lot, but we do it for a reason, guys, like Unicorn Airsoft. I want to give a special shout out to those guys specifically because fucking Christ. Actually, do you want to tell them what we tested out today?
Oh, absolutely. So this is actually insane, right? So if you guys saw our initial review of the MGC4 Mark II, it was getting out to like 250-ish feet, which is pushing the out of the box performance compared to a lot of airsoft guns. A lot of airsoft guns struggled to get out that far. We threw in a Unicorn Type bore inner barrel unbucking, specifically the 455 millimeter one.
Did you put in the nub too?
So yes,
the whole combo, the whole set.
So what comes out of the box with the gun? Oh no, the flash hider's coming off. Oh, screw it. Oh, there it is.
There you go.
So you guys can see right here that the barrel is sticking out. Go ahead. You can see right there that the barrel is sticking out of the gun. It is slightly longer. Again, it is an AK length barrel, 455 millimeters. So we just dropped that in, and then we dropped in the included bucking and barrel, and we were able to we were shooting at a target about like 88-ish yards away, like rough estimate, and it was shooting past it. Oh my goodness.
I think when Bossman was taking a look at it, what was it, like 200, estimated 275, maybe a little more, like feet. So close to 280 feet.
Yeah.
That's pushing the envelope. I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years, Unicorn's able to go out and put out even more like quality inner barrels, or another company comes out and we're able to get past 300 feet for an AEG.
So what's really insane about this, guys, is that that was the only change we did.
Nothing else.
To the gun. Just the inner barrel and bucking and hop-up nut that come all together with Unicorn. The MGC4, this one is completely stock. We haven't upgraded it at all. Did nothing of that nature, and it got that far with 3 OBBs, and it's absolutely insane.
It's not even just AEGs too that they make components for, gas products as well, inner barrels, buckets for them, even stuff for the MWS system as well. We actually sell on our website too, and there is more stuff coming from them as well, and other companies as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. so damn dope to see, especially at the price point, because they're retailing from like $30 to
$35 to like $50.
Yeah, for the barrel bucking and nub combo.
You get it all three in one package.
That's absolutely insane. Like ridiculous, especially with how smooth the barrel is. They just soar. It's so damn dope to see. Like the aftermarket has improved that much and can offer, like especially Unicorn, can offer products like that dramatically increase your performance for a relatively low cost.
That's usually what I say when people ask me, what is the first upgrade I should do for my whatever like insert model here, right?
Yeah.
Like I always tell them, no matter what model you have, like bread and butter your performance, bucking and inner barrel. If you can get away with the nub, if it's an AEG, then do it, right?
Yeah.
And I always recommend Unicorn Airsoft, the cheapest, best upgrade you're going to do, and it's going to save yourself a lot of money and time.
Yeah, I will say though, because a lot of companies do come with Type 4 inner barrels out of the box.
True.
The main difference is
the
smoothness. Unicorn has a special coating that just is so smooth. The BBs just glide out of the barrel, and if you guys don't know, the like BBs bounce inside the barrel.
What is it after every like couple like feet, like for every couple feet that the BB would travel, like it does bounce like once or twice in the barrel?
I forget.
Something like that, right?
I think depending on how long it is.
Yeah.
Like depending on how long it is, the BB might bounce once or twice in the barrel before actually exiting. But because of the smoothness, if your barrel is like doesn't have the best like bore quality, it's kind of rough. Instead of just kind of like sliding off of it, it'll catch it, right? Like especially if like it's like kind of gritty, it'll add a weird backspin to it.
It hit the gritty? What?
God dang it.
He hit the gritty.
Okay, all right, guys. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Range Talk podcast. Let us know what you think about the history. Is there something that we got incorrect or something that we missed? Let us know in the comments below. If you want us to dive in a little bit deeper with the history of some specific things, we can do our research.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know in the comment section. Again, that's the best way to go ahead and give us your suggestions. If you want to go ahead and support the channel directly, make sure to go ahead and shop for all your Airsoft goodies at airsoftgi.com. Remember, any order $20 or more will automatically enter you into the shopping spree giveaway. You do not want to miss out. You could be the very next big winner. But my name is Isaiah.
My name is Cisco.
And I'll catch you guys on the next episode of the Range Talk podcast.
Peace.
Take it easy, guys.